I've moved location. As you can see, I've transported myself into my soul room. I'm coming to you from my soul room with my little lapel mic on. So I wanted to connect with all of you as we wrap up because I wanted to move into my soul room and do something special. I'm going to be reading my story from this fabulous book called Ignite the Hunger in You. But before that, I just want to do a little recap because you've been here all day and you may have missed a little bit. So let me just take a moment to recap before I read my story and share with you some of the fabulous things that are happening and have happened today. So first of all, go to ignitethehungerinyou.com and you're going to find out everything you need to know about this book. You can go to Amazon and download it. Team, I'm going to get you to bring up all of these links while I'm sharing, just in case people need to take a little screenshot or a photograph, anything you need to do. You can even video this little part because if everything you wanted to know about the summit, I'm going to tell you right now. Ignitethehungerinyou.com is where you're going to find out where to get our book and more about the summit. If you go to Amazon and you search Ignite the Hunger in You, you're going to find our book on Amazon and you're going to be able to download it or purchase it. And then you're going to be able to take that fabulous receipt, a screenshot, a snippet out of your computer, a little screenshot from your iPad, and you're going to go to mentorwithless.com. And that's going to give you that free opportunity to mentor with less by entering our contest by uploading that amazing receipt. So upload your receipt so you can mentor with less by using your purchase at mentorwithless.com. Now, just so you know, all of the purchases, online purchases, are going towards building our school. So if you want to help build our school, because every single brick, every single dollar we receive is going to buy bricks. And so if you want to be a part of buying bricks for our school, go to the link here and you can donate directly to our initiative. You'll see it there. We are building a school, 35,000 bricks, and your purchases go towards that. If you want to find out how to write your story, well, check out our website, igniteyou.life. That's right. Igniteyou.life is where you can share with us. You can see all the books we've written. You can see all the authors who've been a part of our process. You can order books there, but you can also connect with us and share your desire by applying to one of our new books, Ignite Your Wisdom, Ignite Freedom. Ignite Freedom, Ignite Forgiveness, and also Keys to Crushing It, Ignite Your Business. And so those are our new books that are coming out in 2022, and we'd love for you to be a part of them. And of course, if you would like to read any of our other books, we've got 17 of them. Please check out igniteyou.life. If you want to know more about me, well, I'm easy to find, jbowen.website. You can search me at jbowen.website. You can find out about my coaching, my legacy coaching, my one-on-one coaching, and all of the white glove programs where I help you write your solo book, I help you build your brand, and I help you create a legacy. There's so much going on, so many fun things. And let's not forget, if you want the Possibility Queen, JB Owen, texting you every single day with possibilities, fun things that are happening for you on your phone, possibility, inspiration, dedication, determination, opportunities. I'm going to text you every single day, and you can get that right here. You can go to mentorwithjb.com and you can sign up for that. And the first month is free. And we've given you an incredible December discount from $27 to $7 a month. For $7 a month, I think it worked out to like 31 or 28 cents a day. 28 cents a day, I'm going to send you possibility, inspiration, and communication for you to up-level your life and make things possible. Go to mentorwithjb.com right now, and you can get your first month free to find out how much you absolutely love it. Well, I think that's all we've got. But, last but not least, what am I talking about? All we got. ignitethehungerinyou.com/VIP, I believe, is the website. You can go and get our VIP Summit Pass. Now, why would I want that? Well, let me tell you, you're going to get access, 1-year access, and video recordings of everything from yesterday, today, and tomorrow, all of Les's stuff, all of our author stuff, everything we've shared here, all the links, all the inspiration, all the great content. You're going to have that for a year available to you, and you're going to get all the $10,000 worth of free gifts. They're going to come to you. Now, if you are not ready for the VIPs, well, that's VIP Pass. That's okay, because you can go to Ignite the Hunger in You and still register for free, and you're going to get an email with all those free gifts. One thing about the VIP Pass that I think is phenomenal is all the extra gifts and prizes, and we're going to send you a copy of the book. So lots and lots of fun stuff. Well, if you need anything, please reach out to our community. You can always find us at support@igniteyou.life. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram. We're all over the place. I think we're even Google Knowledge Panel, Ignite Publishing, and we show up, JBO, and on Google Knowledge Panel. We are here to support you in telling your phenomenal story. Now, I just posted on Facebook a few seconds ago. I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm getting this little fireside chat going because what I want to do is share with you my amazing, vulnerable story. And again, I don't ask people to do things that I'm not willing to do. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to share my story. I'm going to read my story to you, to the community. I'm going to make myself available. I'm going to make this story available to you if you don't have a copy of it. This is the story of JB Owen. Now, this is a story about how I got connected to Les Brown, also how Les Brown came into my life. And it's very apropos that it is in this book. Part of me, I won't lie, there was a part of me that didn't want to tell this story. This story has some shame and some a little bit of moments in it that I thought, well, maybe nobody wants to read that story. Maybe people don't want to hear that story. And the great thing is that voice, that wonderful, amazing voice, the universal voice, God's voice, Les's voice, my own intuition, my voice said, you got to tell that story. That's the story you need to tell because somebody needs to hear it. So I'm going to share my story with you, and I want to thank you if you stick around, if you're out jogging, if you're cooking dinner, if you are doing the laundry, if you are just resting, if you would just love to close your eyes and enjoy. I'll do my best to read in the most profound and inspiring way. If you want to watch me, if you want to turn off the camera, I'm totally okay. Not my team, but if you at home want to turn off your camera so you could rest, I'm totally okay with that. I want this to be a really powerful and intimate experience. I would love for you to get to know me better and why I do what I do, and really why I tell vulnerable stories, why I help people tell their most profound stories is inside this story. All right, without further ado, let's get started now. When you write in an Ignite book, we start every book out in the same way. We have your name, power quote, and intention, and then we start our story. So let me start with my power quote. It is, your past does not define you. Instead, it refines you. I love that power quote. You know, I learned that power quote came to me during my time spent with Les Brown at the beginning of our mentoring process. And your past does not define you. Instead, it refines you. My intention is that some stories are our favorite to tell. Others are the ones we hide away. For many years, I hid this story, thinking that if others did not know, it would not make it be. Except I knew it was true, and instead of sharing it, I kept it within me, reflecting against the kaleidoscope of my life, causing shards of darkness at its will. It was when I finally shared my story, first in a whisper, and then beneath the tears, to now, where I share it openly in the hopes that it will help unfurlough you. Once a raging river, it has settled into a reflective pond. It has softened, soothed, and eventually calmed. My story, once embraced, has ignited a hunger in me to help others know that your past does not define you, but instead it refines you to who you will become. Intentions are a beautiful part of Ignite books because what it does is it sets the tone for exactly what I, as the author, want you, as the reader, to experience. And so I hope my intention was helpful for you to know that I tell this story so that it will help you and it will inspire you. It's titled Get Up, Transform, and Ignite. Here we go. This story doesn't have a pretty beginning. I was 16 the first time my boyfriend showed any signs of aggression towards me. When it happened, I did nothing. I just froze. I stood there with a dumb, shocked look on my face. I didn't fight back, call him out, or walk away. I just stood there, surprised, taken aback, and in total astonishment of what he had done. And he had passed it off as if nothing happened. He acted as if what he was doing was normal. And to him it was, but it wasn't to me. Yet my inability to process his behavior left me subject to this happening again and again over the next 3 years. I was like a lamb, unaware that I was going to slaughter, and in my naivete, I took it all in. In the beginning of our relationship, I found him incredibly charming. It was that ever so soft, stolen kiss that he planted on the side of my neck during the school dance that had me like a bee to honey. I was popular in high school and I ran with the cool kids, but I wasn't sought after by any of those dreamboat guys. I didn't have a big rack or a proclivity to tight jeans, and I didn't smoke, drink, or party like many of the other girls did. I was more into theater and I loved drama, art, and home economics, where you got to make things and cook things. Most of my friends were either super athletic or super smart. I was the anomaly in my crowd, known for my bubbly personality, passion for student council, and the one who always spearheaded the activities at school, like travel club and winter carnival. I loved coordinating events and being on the committees. I didn't have much time for boys until halfway through my junior year when a certain young man, 6 months my senior, planted the light, feather touch of a kiss on the virgin nape of my neck during Starway to Heaven from the gymnastic speakers at our school dance. I was instantly smitten. Our courtship was quick. We started writing notes to each other in class and then eating lunch side by side in the cafeteria. Since I was already driving and had a car, I would pick him up in the morning and take him home every day after school. Those were the golden moments, that precious time when we were lost ourselves in the young, budding romance of two teenage kids. We'd been dating just a few months, well, actually a lifetime for teenagers when it first happened. We were grabbing our books out of the same locker. He had moved into my locker since it was in the more popular part of the school, close to the student council room. His locker was at the far end of the school, where the skids were known to hang out. Moving to my locker in its prestigious spot was a step up for him, and he liked the status that it brought. Before meeting me, he was relatively unknown in my peer group, and he took to it quickly. As we both scrambled for our prospective books on that day, so as not to be late for class, he shoved me out of the way, a bit too hard and a bit too serious. Then he flung out an insult and stared me right in the eye, waiting to see what I would do. Looking back at that moment, I realized that had I reacted or done something, it would have set a very different ball into motion. But instead, I froze. I went silent, and I simply stared back with the pleading eyes of someone who wanted to believe that that shove didn't just happen. That denial cemented the permission he needed to know that I would endure whatever he dished out in the future. Now, the second time it happened, we were sitting in the drive-thru at McDonald's, disagreeing about the fact that he had ordered an unnecessary amount of food, including that supersized drink. Since I was paying again, I was a bit annoyed at his freewheeling excess. I had a part-time job. He did not. I had parents who owned a few successful businesses. He did not. I was able to buy things that he could not. And in fact, his stepfather was a heavy drinker who couldn't hold a job, and his mom only did part-time janitorial work at the hospital. They were living on mere means, and dating me provided certain financial perks that he was becoming increasingly accustomed to. And on that day, he was spending my hard-earned money as if it was his own. I was complaining as to why he couldn't just order the regular size. And he was explaining I was explaining how he never drank all of the supersized drink and most of it went to waste. As the food came through the window and we drove away, I kept talking about the waste and the expense. And that's when he took that supersized cup and threw it right in my face, telling me to shut up. The lid burst off the cup and the soda inside splashed everywhere. It was in my face, it was in my hair, it was all over the windshield, all over the car, in my seat, and in my lap. I just sat there stunned, dripping, wet, in shock. I froze in utter disbelief. He drove directly to his house, not saying a word, then got out of the car and went inside as if nothing happened, leaving me there on the curb in the passenger seat, sopping up the mess. I went home that night terrified at what I had did, How I must have provoked him, triggered his embarrassment. I was not being able, because he was not able to pay. I must have stunned his ego. And I pushed the point just a bit too much. I was making it about me. I was internalizing the entire event, making it my fault. And that solidified exactly how he treated me for the next 3 years. In between the gooey high school puppy love, I put up with his constant mood swings, from charming, doting boyfriend to belligerent, bossy, and bad-mouthing me. One day he was a dream guy, the other a nightmare. And the entire time I was in high school, I was his keeper, his bank, and his kicking stick. I don't know why I did it, why I allowed all the abuse. I guess it was the romance that came after the making up and all the promises I received. Part of it was to avoid the disappointment of our friends, as we'd become the it couple of the school. Of course, no one knew that he was treating me that way. It all happened in private. Hmm. I was so embarrassed of what was going on, and I wanted to keep it that way, that no one would find out and I would not look like a failure or a bad girlfriend or an inadequate one. I protected him, I shook it off, and I accepted all the abuse with apologies when they came. As graduation arrived, 3 years later, tension began to grow between us. I was accepted to a school 27 kilometers away, and he was not. I had options, and he did not. My parents were encouraging me to spread my wings, and his parents were demanding he start supporting them, while all the while reminding him he would never amount to much. Excitedly, I turned 18 and graduated high school within a week of each other. It was a very big celebration to finish school and become an adult all within the same week. It was June, and with school over, many of our friends were prolonging the partying and endless kicking back before July began. Well, I was not. I had started my own little business in the mall, subleasing some space, and I was determined to work as much as I could before the fall, when I'd be going off to college. He was resentful and caused many occasions to make me late for work. He required me to leave early, and he stirred up so much drama that all I could do was stop the working to sort it out. The weekend following graduation, I got a phone call from a girlfriend to come and get him. He'd been out with her boyfriend, getting drunk and making up a ruckus, and it wasn't the first time he got drunk and disorderly at a friend's house. He boasted about how much he could drink, and he was happy to show you just how much that was. When I pulled into my girlfriend's driveway, I could see him stumbling on the front lawn in a drunken stupor. It was the first time I actually realized how bad he was for me, how much he was ruining my life. I was annoyed and plainly showed it as I rolled down the window and told him to get in the car so I could take him home. He acted happy that I was there and encouraged me to come join them all for a drink. I could see the pleading faces of my friends who just wanted me to take him home. I declined and ordered him to get in the car. I was so tired, not just from working a long shift, but having to constantly nurse him, save him, and remove him from situations that he was insisting on escalating. I tried to be calm. He was not. I wanted to be the practical one. He was not. I was the one that wanted to work toward having a future, and all he wanted to do was constantly work on making me someone I was not. Despite his drunk, amusing pleas to not be such a bore, I saw the subtle shift in his demeanor. I knew that the insults were coming, and so instinctively I rolled up my window to avoid his alcohol-filled breath and prove that I was serious. I wanted to go home, and he better get in my car. And that is when, like a viper, he changed. And with all his might, he punched the car window right in front of my face. Luckily, the glass didn't break, but it made one hell of a noise, slipping off the track, and fell cockeyed into the door. I froze. I was shocked, stunned, and I remember seeing the faces on all my friends, astonished that he had just punched exactly where my face was. And then, like he often did, he turned mean and started swearing at me and blaming me. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway. I drove home shaking. I was terrified and appalled by his behavior. It was the first time ever that I had defied him, and the first time anyone had actually seen him treat me that way. Inside my heart, I knew it was over, and I was grateful by the end of summer that I wouldn't have to break up with him, but instead move away and let life take its course. I had become accustomed to his hot and cold behavior, and I assumed, like all the other times, this event would blow over. Soon enough, he'd show up remorseful or apologetic, and I'd do what I'd always do. I'd listen. He'd be sorry for the uncontrollable rage he had pent up inside due to his alcoholic stepfather and his dead end life. And I'd pump him up and suggest some options. I was always trying to find the solution. He was not. I was forever giving my best, and he was not. I was at a place where I felt ready to move on, but he certainly was not, and he did everything to hang on to me with all his might. I went to bed that night with the belief that in a few days I would find him leaning against my car holding flowers, or on the front steps and with his puppy dog look on his face, wanting to make up, and yet sadly that didn't happen. That evening at 2:47 a.m. in the middle of the night, I was awoken by the light turning on in my bedroom. I remember the time exactly because my eyes popped open to the light and I saw my alarm clock on my night table. I flipped over in fear as I knew I was home alone. My parents were divorced. My mom had taken advantage of my school being over, and my newly acquired 18-year-old status had her going away for a long weekend with her boyfriend. My father lived out on the coast with his new wife, and my sister was living in residence at university. I was all by myself. So the only person who could be turning on the light at that hour had to be an intruder. With my adrenaline skyrocket, I spun around to find him standing there in my bedroom doorway, more drunk than he was before. Needless to say, I was annoyed and angry that he had both woke me up and scared me half to death. But I was also acutely aware of the fact that he didn't have a key to my house, and so the only way he could have got in was by breaking in. And there was this drunk look on his face that was no longer amusing, but instead menacing. I tried to take control of the situation by sitting up and reaching for my housecoat, talking to him rationally and sweetly, and that's when the first hit came. He punched me without any provocation right in the face. I flew back on my bed, and within seconds he was on top of me, hands around my neck, and strangling me with so much fury that spittle was coming out of his mouth. He swore and called me names, all the while squeezing the airway he had in his hands. It was a fight for my life, and I clawed out from under him. On hands and knees, I crawled to the doorway where he kicked me in the side, in the stomach, and in the upper thigh. He was a big soccer player, and he knew exactly how and where to kick, and he flew me against the wall, denting the drywall. I used the door jam to help me stand up, only to be hit again. I fell into the hallway, not knowing where I was going, but just trying to get out of there. He pulled me back by the hair, pushed me into the wall, and kneed me in the torso. I stood up to catch my breath, only to receive another hit in the face. I could go on, but frankly, the rest is mostly a blur. I awoke hours later at the end of the hallway, a heap on the floor. My face was swollen, my nails were broken, and blood was crusting on my fingertips. My ribs were broken, my throat was burning and hoarse, and one of my legs wouldn't move. I crawled on my belly to the kitchen to telephone for help and saw that the phone had been ripped out of the wall and only wires were remaining and sticking out. Terror washed over me. He might still be in the house, I thought. I froze, completely silent, listening for any sound or indication that he was still there. From the kitchen landing, I could see the front door and noticed that it was unlocked. I knew that I had locked it the night before, so the fact that it was unlocked meant that he had unlocked it to leave. I crawled to my mom's room to use her phone, only to find it also ripped out of the wall. There was no way to call for help. I was on my own, and all my senses returned. I was becoming increasingly aware of how hurt I truly was. I pulled myself and crawled down to the basement where we had a junk room filled with old discarded stuff due for a garage sale. I tore through a green garbage bag where I knew an old phone was part of the things we were giving to charity. I pulled it out and plugged it in to an outlet in the basement and called the one friend I knew I could trust, my friend Rob. Rob had been one of my best friends for quite some time. He was like a brother to me, and I had spent many dinners with him and his family and numerous weekends at his house just playing video games. The best part was Rob's dad was actually my doctor. He was the doctor that had delivered me when I was born and had been in my life ever since, both professionally as a confident doctor and fatherly as a role model. I loved Rob's dad, and he'd healed many of my pains when I was a kid, giving me that proverbial lollipop after the visit. He had the most caring and gentle heart of any man I had ever known. Rob was one of his three boys, and so I got super spoiled. I was like the missing daughter in their family. And in my battered state, I knew Rob would help. So I dialed Rob's number. Rob was there within 15 minutes, loading me into his car and taking me to the hospital. When we got to the emergency ward, his dad was immediately called. As the nurses assessed my injuries and Rob's dad drove from his private clinic to the hospital, my mind was racing. What was I going to do? I had told Rob in the car what had happened, and he was furious that my boyfriend had done this. Rob told the nurses, who called the police, while x-rays were being taken of my legs and rib. My fingers were bandaged, and salve was applied to the cuts and scratches on my neck and face. Rob's dad did everything to take care of me, and when the police entered the emergency room, he lovingly squeezed my hand to give me courage. And when the officers first asked me what happened, I did what I did before. I froze. I went silent. I didn't know what to do. I mean, a week ago, I was a 17-year-old kid enjoying the fun and frolic of high school. And now I was in a hospital, assaulted with officers in front of me and no parents there to save me. The police shared that they had been to my house and noticed the forced entry in a broken basement window and the ruckus in the house. All they needed me to do was tell them the name of the person who did it, and they would arrest him. I froze. I don't know why, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't say his name. The boy I had spent the last 3 years trying to love, trying to save, wanting to heal. I just shook my head in tears, streaming down my face, unable to say anything. Rob's dad, he let go of my hand and he exited the room. Letting him down was the biggest humiliation I ever felt. I didn't have the courage or the strength to be the one responsible for ruining another person's life by condemning them to jail, and I knew my boyfriend would go to jail for what he did. So I stayed silent, and I refused to tell my side of the story. When I got out of the hospital, Rob's dad paid for me to fly to the West Coast where my father lived. My mom was still away, and I had no one to protect me, and getting out of town was the best thing to do. Rob drove me to the airport, and within 10 days of turning 18, I left everything I knew behind and ran for my home, my job, and that relationship. I was wheeled onto the plane in a wheelchair and off the plane in a wheelchair into my father's car. Not much was said when my father picked me up. I felt paralyzed when I saw my past, and I kept staying silent. And deep inside me, when my father looked at me, all I did was think it was my fault. I know my story is not unique in that many women have endured both similar and more horrific situations than mine. As I grew older, I became aware of just how many women face physical, emotional, and psychological abuse, all at the hands of someone who says they love them. I was equally aware of the many indicators of abuse and violence that shows up in relationships. I wouldn't allow swearing around me, and I knew never, ever to escalate into anything that would make something bigger and allow someone to abuse me. I became closed off to anyone who drank a lot, and I avoided guys who made any derogatory remarks, even in a joking way. Sadly, I never truly dealt with what happened. My parents were supportive at the time, but they were happy that I had freed myself of him and I was starting a new life, living in a new city and moving on. I lived in that city for the next 21 years. I married and had two beautiful children. I did what all people do in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. I made new friends. I enjoyed a wonderful career. I traveled extensively and forgot mostly about that boy until one day, 6 months after my divorce, and 1 week from my 40th birthday, there was a hello on my Facebook. It was a hello from him, and it was followed by a shy and polite request to apologize for the deplorable behavior of a young and stupid 18-year-old boy. I was spurred on by his restitution initiative and inspired by a healthy sobriety program, and he seemed honest, heartfelt, and after almost 3 decades was sincere. I responded. Once again, I didn't want to be the hinder of any healthy recovery program, and so I was open to listening and hearing him out. With my wounded heart from my divorce and feeling a bit of loneliness, I allowed his apologies to turn into conversations, and then longer conversations. I listened to him talk about God and religion, spirituality, the cosmos, sobriety, self development, and soulmates. He spoke profoundly about his new life, and he peppered it with the humility and gratitude he had now achieved. It was both interesting and fascinating to hear that he was aspiring for more, while I was actually picking up the pieces of my life. It didn't take long until we agreed to meet. That boy and I, that boy from 27 years ago, we wanted to heal the emotional pain that both of us had been carrying on from the past. I flew to see him. He was there to pick me up at the airport, and he started crying the moment he saw me. I was instantly convinced that he was changed. And like two kids back in high school, we quickly rekindled our relationship. I trusted that I was wiser, smarter, and stronger, and certainly more assured of myself, fully knowing that what I wanted and while I wasn't willing to tolerate, I felt completely capable of creating a better relationship this time. He was 8 years sober, working his program, aware, reserved, and focused on bettering himself while making me the happiest woman ever. I felt he had become the man I always wanted to be when we were back in high school. Sooner than I should have, I introduced him to my kids, had him visiting often, and within 6 months, we both moved to a town where we could start our lives all over again. It all seemed perfect, like a fairy tale, reunited after all these years, rewriting the past, overcoming the hurdles, finding each other again after being apart for so long. I bought into it all hook, line, and sinker. The perfect Disney ending to two lost lovers reunited was all I could think of. And within a year, we were married and living a life we had always talked about when we were teenagers. 15 days after the wedding, he got mad at me about something and swore at me and spitefully said he wished he never would have married me. And what did I do? I froze. I was almost immobilized. I had sheltered myself for almost 3 decades from any hint of abuse, and like a Jekyll and Hyde, he flared up just 2 weeks after saying I do. I was mortified, horrified, almost catatonic at what was happening. Like a bad horror story, his charming behavior all unraveled faster than it started. Of course, the instant apology came right after that, and within the first year of our marriage, guess what? He relapsed, not just once, but 3 times. I helped him into rehab. I committed to starting over countless times. I did my best to heal him, to love him, to fix all that was broken, just like I had when I was a teenager. I did everything to save him when it was, in fact, me who needed saving. Earlier in the summer, we had rented a lake cottage as per his need for peace and quiet and desire to get out of town. He wanted to leave the town because it had tempted him to drink. And in the beginning of that summer, it was a wonderful reprieve for him and me and the kids to enjoy the lake water and the fishing and the diving off of the pier and some semblance of a normal life with a normal stepfather. But as the months went on, he used the cottage to be alone, to get away, and to isolate himself. I kept trusting his time there would be helpful until the day I showed up, unannounced, and saw a heavily tattooed woman with half her head shaved smoking a joint through my kitchen window. I loudly knocked on the door and then walked into my cabin in my home and watched as she threw the joint out the window and buttoned up the front of her shirt. She was scraggy and young, and by the looks of the place, completely disconnected to civilized living. The cottage was a mess. Pizza boxes were all over. Wet towels were on the floor. Dirty ashtrays, beer cans, and used glasses laid everywhere. I didn't recognize the place, and I was aghast at what had become of it since my last visit. All I could do was ask her where he was, and she pointed to the bedroom. There I found him, face down on the bed that had no sheets or blankets, but was a bare mattress. The room was strewn with clothes, and a suitcase lay open on the floor with 3 empty bottles of vodka in it. Another empty bottle was on the nightstand, and another was on the floor inches from his hand that was hanging over the bed as if he was reaching for it. My goodness, seeing him there, passed out, surrounded by all that chaos he created, I realized the drugs, the hookers, the theft, the lies, the abuse, all the erotic behavior that was going on was going to stop. There was no more fixing him. It needed to stop into me. And once again, I realized that he was destroying my life. I shook him awake, and like a bear emerging from a winter slumber, he rose in a foul mood. I should have known better, but I didn't. I confronted him, and I confronted the bottles, the broken promises, the lies, the girl up in the kitchen, and that's when it all happened. He punched me right in the face. I fell back into the wall, and identical to that night 27 years ago, he grabbed me by the throat and started squeezing. I pushed him back and lunged for the door to escape. He grabbed me by the hair and pulled me, only to shove me up against the wall and knee me in the ribs and the torso. I fell to the floor, and he kicked me in the side of the leg just like he had done last time. But this time I stumbled backwards and drew back in a strike, and I screamed, "Stop!" in the longest drawn-out command at the top of my lungs. He froze and just stared at me. He blinked at me like a fish in a dirty tank. I said it again, "Stop!" And this time with every fiber of my being spewing from my lips, and in knowing that I had finally reached my limit and I was done being treated that way. I stood there looking him straight in the eye, ready for whatever he was going to do, whatever was going to happen next. I had taken it before, and I was going to take it but I was not going to take it again. After seconds of a standoff, I saw all the brutish bulliness drain from him. I literally saw the skin on his face sag, and the arch in his shoulders slouch, and the clench of his fists subside. It was as if he'd become a deflated balloon or a hollow shell. And not saying a word, he just turned and walked back into the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. I limped out of the cottage and drove myself directly to the police station. I sat with the police officer and shared what had happened, my bruises, my scratches, the torn clothing. It was all photographed and recorded. I gave my statement and I signed it, something I should have done when I was 18 years old. I knew deep down inside we had been brought back together, not for me to heal him, but instead for me to heal myself. I needed to stand up, find my voice, and finally put an end to that kind of treatment. After all those years of ignoring it, I had to make right on something I should have done the very first time he ever hit me. And later that day, he was arrested, charged with assault, and taken to jail. Now, that may seem like a rewarding end to my story, but in truth, it was just the beginning. It marked the start of a journey I had to take towards my own self-discovery and inner awakening. It formed the very epicenter of the necessary healing that I had to take within me. At first, I could hardly breathe as I sank into the devastating aftermath of all that had happened. I had to face the shame and overcome the blame and feel the crippling reality of the decision I had made to reconnect with him, to marry him. I sank as low as I could go, burying myself in the debilitating consequences of how foolish I was to trust him. I raged with self-hatred for supporting him despite the countless warning from others, and I overrode my own intuition. My self-loathing became an agonizing storm that raged on my entire being, sinking me into the darkest depths of my life. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, locked in fear, devastated by the effects I had had on my children, and coping with the trauma of being assaulted again, and dealing with the humiliation I felt inside. I didn't know where my next step was or where to turn. And like a drowning victim, I just grasped for anything that would counteract the anguish that would pull me from the wreckage I had made of my life. And that's when I heard a voice on YouTube. It was a confident, caring, yet empathetic voice that said, If you fall down, make sure you can land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. And something in that voice and those words spoke to my very soul. You can get up. You can get up. You can get up. I played it over and over again. I listened to that recording day and night, putting it on repeat and listening to it endlessly. It became my mantra, my lifeline, and it helped me to know that no matter what had happened to me, I just needed to look up and I could get up. Of course, the man who said that was none other than Les Brown himself. His inspiring words pushed me not to just take care of myself, but to persevere and prevail. I began to follow Les and listen to whatever I could from him. I immersed myself in his teachings and saturated my mind with his message. Over the next 5 years, I devoted myself to doing everything possible to healing my life, my kids' lives, and the lives of others who felt the despair and sadness that gripped their hearts like mine had from abuse. I started using my own voice to make an impact and devoted my efforts to blossoming into a woman I knew I was meant to become. I immersed myself in healing and started defining my greatness. I read, listened, studied, trained, self-taught, self-explored, and propelled myself forward in every way I could. I stopped freezing in conflict. I stopped being silent when things were unjust. And I stopped letting anything happen to me that wasn't designed and to determine the healthiest version of me. I let my wounds heal over, and I became the calluses I needed to step into a new arena of possibilities that I was determined to create for myself. And life became full, and life became abundant. God gifted me as he eternally does, and I was awakened and freed, unleashed to be fully me. Today, I now bask in my past and embrace all of that story. Despite its unsavory beginnings, the magnitude of its impact is what propels me forward. It is the story I needed to have to stand before you as the woman I am today. I decided to stop letting my story define who I was and hold me back. Instead, I chose it and used it to redefine who I wanted to become and unconditionally love that person. I learned firsthand the importance of raising my self-worth and elevating the beliefs I had in myself. I became hungry to develop new skills and show as many people I could how it was possible to do the same in their lives. I have enjoyed the powerful benefits of working on myself and found a winning attitude towards cultivating greatness and mastering personal strength inside of me. All of my story has inspired me to help others achieve that same greatness in their lives and made igniting people my magnificent obsession. Much of what I do today, publishing other people's stories, is because I have this story. I'm a better woman and a better human because I have all of that in my past. It's what makes me connect to others and I value their unique stories that they have. My desire to help people share their powerful stories led me to reach out and connect with Les Brown to create a book of inspiring stories from the other people who he has influenced like me. This, in your hands, is that book. And it was a proud day in my life when I spoke with Les and we agreed to partner in this compelling compilation together, knowing the positive impact it will make. Les has now become an amazing friend, and I'm delighted and blessed that he is a huge part of my life. And in so many ways, Les has shown up for me. The best part is the full circle my story has taken. Because while I was working on this project, Les shared a powerful YouTube recording that was made of him. When he began to play it, the goosebumps formed on my arms and neck. It was the same recording I had listened to during that most difficult time. It was the same profound words that told me that I could get up when I felt so lost. And instantly my eyes welled up with tears thinking about that devastating day when I first heard his life-changing words. And as the tears began to fall, I immediately stopped myself, asking, why am I crying? What do I have to be sad about? I mean, I should be celebrating. Look where I am. Look how far I've come. Look at my life. And what I quickly realized is when I first heard Les speak, it was not the darkest day. It was one of the greatest days of my life because it was the day the angels delivered his message to me. His words became the catalyst for me to get up and find my greatness. They became the beacon for me to learn more, grow as a person, and inspire for a greater life. I saw that what I thought was my darkest day was, in fact, my awakening. my enlightenment, a gift, a treasure, and the best day ever because it got me to where I am right now. We often think a storm only brings the rain, but the rain feeds the flowers that produces the rainbow and washes away what is no longer needed. I had to smile and redefine that day, not as the darkest day, but the day that led me to this moment. A day where I feel great sense of accomplishment for every step that has brought me to this very spot. I had to take all those twists and turns to guide me to where I am here, working, training, partnering, and mentoring with the great Les Brown. We are sharing stories that will help millions of lives. We are impacting the next round of world renowned speakers, and we are creating an international best selling book that will touch the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. I was mistaken thinking that his message came to pull me from the darkness, when in fact it arrived to guide me to the light. The light I hope that will ignite you. It is my intention that my story and all the stories in this book will help you shine the light on the fact that what we think is one thing is often something else. What seems like darkness is indeed the beginning of truth and the light. We don't know where our story will lead us, but as it begins, but what we do know is that that story is the foundation of the wondrous experiences we are destined to have. I believe every story matters, no what form it takes, no matter how it begins. When you embrace your story and use it to ignite your future, you develop a hunger so deep that nothing can stop you. That hunger magnifies even more when you accept your past and appreciate your story, however it unfolded. It is when we share our stories that we empower ourselves and give meaning to our stories and use them to help others who may be going through the same situation. Your story will touch lives and it'll spark souls in a way you may never have known. You have that ability to use your story to ignite a passion and develop a hunger in others, so share it. Tell your story, learn from it, and then use it to propel those that need to hear it so that they can forward their lives and get up from whatever they are, from wherever they are. I want you to see the light that shines from your story and know that your past does not define you, but instead refines you for greatness, the possibilities, the magnificent obsession you are destined to have. Everything that happens for your highest good. Every experience, everything is a part of the kaleidoscope that creates you. I do look forward to hearing your story and see how it is ignited and defined the greatness that resides in you. You are a gift like no other. You have magnificence in you, and your story is your power, so use it. I believe that my story as it started for a reason. It started back when I was 16 years old. I had choices to make and decisions to do, and I chose them exactly the way I did to lead me here to where I am right now. That story has helped refine me into the person I've become. And looking back, I'm grateful for all the people that were with me along the way. That's my story. I have some action steps here. Take time to write down the facts surrounding your darkest day and list all the things and the events and situations that led and contributed to the feelings that made it your darkest day, and see how you could turn it around. I want to thank you for letting me tell my story. I have not read it out loud to anyone. And so you are a great gift to me. You've allowed me to reread my story that I wrote months ago. And now, months later, I'm a different person. This story has ignited me. This story has given me so many beautiful gifts. Also, while I was reading my story, my phone rang and it was Les. And that was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing for me to glance over and see that Les called me during my story. He's been a profound, inspirational person in my life, and I want to say thank you to him. I want to say thank you to all the people who have listened to my story. I hope it was helpful in some way. I hope that reading it was entertaining and inspiring, and from it you glean what is best for you. Just know that wherever your story, however it started, and it may, as my story began, it doesn't start pretty, but however it started for a reason, because it's taking you down a path of where you need to go. I want to thank all of my team, everyone in the background. Hooray for you. Thumbs up. Big kisses to my team, to my husband, to my authors, to all the people in the Ignite community, to everyone who is supporting this book, to all of you who've got your ticket, got your chapter, got your book, helped with the school. it's just an incredible, incredible, incredible collection of people. And I just want to say thank you to each of you. Thank you to Facebook and to YouTube and to all the social media, to StreamYard and to our producer and everything that everybody who has worked to create these platforms so that we could bring this to you. Thank you to all the geniuses who made social media possible and made this sharing wherever you are in the world, whatever country you are in, whatever moment you are experiencing, whatever season you are in your life. I just want to say I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful that we get this opportunity to share together. Blessings to each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, day 3, our final day of Ignite the Hunger in You Summit. We'll be checking in at 9:45 Eastern. We'll be starting out. We're having all kinds of fun things happening in the morning with our celebrity guests. Les is going to be back. The rest of our authors from the book. Love it, love it, love it. Big blessings to each and every one of you. Big kisses. Thank you to all the team. May your life be blessed and filled with Ignite moments. All right, good night.